and to meet the enemy in Chernihiv. What we are already doing. The so-called reduction of activity of the Chernihiv region was demonstrated by the enemy's strikes, including airstrikes. And all night long, they were shelling Chernihiv. Civilian infrastructure facilities, libraries, shopping centers, many houses were destroyed.
These are the latest satellite images of Mariupol. We can see destroyed apartment buildings, an extensively damaged Mariupol theatre and a nearby residential area as well. Tanks and armoured personnel carrier vehicles lining the streets east of Mariupol. There are also long queues of people waiting to get their hands on food. Russian forces have been conducting a steady and indiscriminate bombardment of the city, trapping an estimated 160,000 people with little food, water or medicine. The United States and other Western allies have been expressing scepticism after those peace talks concluded in Istanbul.
Well, I don't think a lot. We judge the Russian military machine by its actions, not just its words. There's obviously some scepticism that it will regroup to attack again, rather than seriously engage in diplomacy or anything of that nature. Of course, the door to diplomacy will always be left ajar, but I don't think you can trust what is coming out of the mouth of Putin's war machine.
Joe Biden struck a similar tone, expressing his thoughts about those pledges made by Russia in Turkey.
We'll see. I don't read anything into it until I see what their actions are. We'll see if they follow through on what they're suggesting. There are negotiations that have begun today, or not begun, continued today, one in Turkey and others. I had a meeting with the heads of state of our four allies in NATO, France, Germany, the United States, and Great Britain. And there seems to be a consensus that let's just see what they have to offer.
The former president of Ukraine is among those who also refuses to believe those pledges made by Russia. Petro Poroshenko is now serving as a soldier in the ongoing war, and he joined WION's executive editor Palki Sharma Upadhyay for an exclusive interview from the conflict zone.
Mr. Petro Poroshenko, welcome to WION, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You've been on the front line since the invasion began. How are you doing? Are you safe?
Me, together with the whole Ukrainian people, together with the whole official, are soldiers now. And we do our best to stop Russian aggression, to throw him out from Ukrainian soil, and to defend and protect our people. Now you hear, I don't know if you hear that or not, you hear the Russian artillery fire.
Tell us about where you're standing at the moment. You say the site has become a symbol for Ukraine. Tell us more about it. And what is it like living through a war?
When I was elected as a president, Crimea was already occupied. Donbass was already occupied. And believe me, this was not a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. That was a full war. And the volume of the operation, the size of the operation was very big. But I am proud that we stopped Russian troops there. We released 2/3 of the occupied Donbass, and we protect country by the very different means, from the army means to the diplomatic means. Now I am proud that since year 2014 we create the new country. We provide the army reform. We create a new army together with the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian volunteers. We create the new municipality structure because of the decentralization. And that's why we surprise the world. Because Putin promised that within 36 hours, he captured Kiev. And the Russian flag would be above the governmental building of Ukraine. Tomorrow would be 5 disastrous weeks of war. 5 weeks, Ukrainian armed forces and Ukrainian people fighting against, as they said, second biggest army in the world. And we surprised the world. We demonstrate that the Ukrainian army, Ukrainian armed forces, demonstrate a unique unity. All the countries against Putin, all the countries against a Russian fascist who come here to kill Ukraine. You know why? Because this is not possible a compromise, because they want to have us dead. They want to erase Ukraine from the world map, and we simply want to live. And it's definitely impossible to find out the field for the compromise. But proud for the last 8 years, and I'm proud for my country. I'm proud for my presidents, and I'm proud that army, Ukrainian cultural sphere, Ukrainian religious sphere is help us to unite the nation. And it's louder and louder. So we are really in a hot war zone, in a hot war time.
Mr. Poroshenko, are you safe?
Nobody is safe in Kiev, believe me. But here is definitely, you see what's going on here, and this is definitely not safe. But we live with this condition for already 35 days.
Indeed, we appreciate your courage, sir. To do this interview in such a difficult condition is no mean feat, and we respect you for that. In the past, you've called Russia's President Vladimir Putin a quote-unquote crazy maniac. What message would you like to send him today?
I don't change my mind. And no normal person is impossible to explain what is the reason why he's doing that. He is inadequate. He is unpredictable. He is crazy. Killer, which should be behind the bars of International Criminal Court.
Meanwhile, Russia is deepening its relationship with China as it becomes ever more isolated from global financial systems as well as supply chains. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has met with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in the eastern province of Anhui. It was the first in-person meeting between Wang Yi and Lavrov since the start of the conflict in Ukraine. The foreign ministers condemned what they called illegal and counterproductive Western sanctions imposed on Moscow. After the meeting, the Chinese Foreign Ministry described their relationship as limitless.
There is no limit to China-Russia cooperation, no limit to our efforts to achieve peace, safeguard security and oppose hegemony. China-Russia relations are non-aligned, non-confrontational and not targeted at any third party.
The two ministers agreed to strengthen their strategic partnership and to speak on global affairs with a united voice. It was also agreed to further strengthen foreign policy coordination and to widen cooperation on bilateral and multilateral formats. Wang Yi said Chinese and Russian relations had withstood the test of international turbulence and said there was an increased willingness to develop relations that had grown resiliently. The Foreign Ministry further described the relationship as non-aligned, non-confrontational and not targeted at any third party. Well, as the Russian invasion of Ukraine passes its 35th day, several European countries have expelled dozens of Russian diplomats. Belgium has thrown out 21 Russian staff for allegedly spying and posing threats to security. Belgium says the move is related to national security and says diplomatic channels will remain open. The Belgian decision was coordinated with the Netherlands, which on Tuesday expelled 17 Russian intelligence agents. The Netherlands says its decision is based on information from its own security services. Ireland asked 4 senior officials at the Russian embassy to leave the country, and the Czech Republic also expelled 1 member of the diplomatic staff at Russia's embassy in Prague. Russia has expelled 10 diplomats from the Baltic states of Estonia, here in Latvia and Lithuania. All three countries were once part of the Soviet Union, but are now members of both the European Union and NATO. Latvia marked 18 years of NATO membership this very week. Russian ambassadors in several of the countries taking the latest steps have issued angry statements. The Embassy of Ireland, for example, has described the decision as groundless. The war in Ukraine has triggered turbulence in global food markets. Amid escalating food insecurity, the United Nations Security Council held a meeting devoted to the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, but also beyond. A top US diplomat accused Russia of having caused the global food crisis.
Putin's war is driving up the costs of providing food assistance. And the impacts of Putin's war are being felt far beyond Ukraine's borders as well, with some of the most immediate and dangerous implications for global food security. The Russian Navy is blocking access to Ukraine's ports, essentially cutting off exports of grain. They're reportedly preventing approximately 94 ships carrying food for the world market from reaching the Mediterranean.
Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia rejected those accusations and instead blamed Western sanctions on Russia for the food crisis. That was denied by the US. The director of the World Food Programme, David Beasley, warned that the war in Ukraine is threatening to devastate efforts to feed some 125 million people globally. Beasley told the 15-member UN Security Council that 50% of the grain bought by WFP came from Ukraine. Ukraine had gone from the breadbasket of the world to the bread lines, he said. Beasley added that the crisis was compounded by a lack of fertilizer products coming from Belarus and from Russia. Both Russia and Ukraine are major cereal producers. Ukraine and Russia represent 30% of world wheat exports. It's 20% for corn and 75% for sunflower oil. Millions of people across North Africa, the Middle East and parts of Asia are left facing the potential loss of access to affordable supplies. The war has raised the threat of food shortages and political instability in countries that had been reliant on Ukrainian wheat, including Indonesia, Egypt, Yemen and Lebanon. Food insecurity is already a problem in Afghanistan, Yemen and in the Horn of Africa, and the Ukraine crisis threatens to make the problem worse in those places. Next to France, and the presidential election there is set to be held next month, and the race might just be heating up. Two new opinion polls show French far-right leader Marine Le Pen closing the gap on President Emmanuel Macron. The two-round elections will be on April the 10th and then April the 24th. Emmanuel Macron so far has been the favourite to win, and his chances had been boosted by his handling of the diplomatic crisis caused by the war in Ukraine. But his estimated margin of victory, according to the polls, is shrinking. If they face each other in the second round runoff, a poll by the IFOP Fiducial Group indicated that Macron would win by 53%, with Le Pen on 47%. Another poll by Ipsos showed Macron winning by 56, with Le Pen behind on 54, so still quite a large gap. But both polls had Le Pen gaining 3 points in a week. Aides to Emmanuel Macron have tried to play down the changes in those polling numbers, one advisor saying it was a simple correction after a sharp rise in support following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Le Pen, though, has seized upon the numbers. She says she's never been so close to victory. Her campaign has focused on the economic problems faced by low-income families, and Emmanuel Macron's first public walkabout to meet voters on Monday was filled with complaints about inflation and rising fuel prices. He's defending his government's use of costly consulting firms, meanwhile, like McKinsey, following a highly critical report from the Senate this month. Emmanuel Macron denies that he is using consultants in a way that is more significant than previous governments, but the investigation found the value of such contracts had more than doubled between 2018 and 2021, costing over $1 billion last year alone. Emmanuel Macron said additional help was necessary during the pandemic when ministers and civil servants were stretched thin. COVID-19 cases in China continue to rise. The country has now reported more than 6,800 COVID-19 cases in the last 25 hours. Shanghai is the centre of what is the country's worst COVID-19 outbreak since the onset of the pandemic.
Once again, Shanghai's streets are empty. More than 2 years on from the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, China's financial hub is in one of its most extensive lockdowns yet. The snap two-stage lockdown was announced by the local government late on Sunday. Through closing bridges and tunnels, the restrictions roughly split Shanghai in two along the Huangpu River. Over 9 days, healthcare workers in white hazmat suits aim to carry out staggered testing of the country's most populous city, which is struggling to contain cases. Confined once again to their homes, the announcement has taken some by surprise. PhD student Marek Narozniak says he woke up to find a fence around his compound.
So I was really upset and angry when I learned that we are locked up, and especially that I learned in such horrible way, just go outside and see there is a fence and you are like in a cage and that's it. I think this whole operation is causing a lot of harm to many people and a lot of suffering. And I don't really believe that is necessary or appropriate.
While many of the city's 26 million people share Marek's exasperation, others are upbeat, like 30-year-old Joe.
With one adjective, I think we should be calm and face this positively. It may persist for a while, so it would be better to face it with a positive attitude and then allow this epidemic to pass over as soon as possible. Let Shanghai return to its former liveliness as soon as possible.
Shanghai's caseload remains modest by global standards, with 96 symptomatic cases on Monday. But the city has become a testing ground for China's zero-COVID strategy as it tries to bring the highly infectious Omicron variant under control. On Monday alone, Shanghai conducted more than 8 million tests at over 60,000 stations through its lockdown districts.
Some business news now, and Sony has come up with a new subscription plan with over 300 games across PlayStation generations. Critics say it doesn't measure up, though, to Microsoft's Game Pass.
Sony is fighting back against Microsoft's Game Pass subscription service. The Japanese firm says it plans a major revamp of its own PlayStation Plus. It will offer hundreds of games, including the latest Spider-Man title. The service will launch in June in the US, Europe and Japan, priced at a flat monthly fee. Sony is widely seen as winning the consoles war, having sold 17 million of the latest PlayStations. But it's been under pressure to combat Microsoft's fast-growing Game Pass, which has 25 million subscribers. It accounts for 60% of game subscriptions in North America and Europe, compared to just 7% for Sony. In January, the US giant struck a $68.7 billion deal to buy game developer Activision Blizzard to bulk up its content offering. Now Sony is fighting back, and analysts say it looks well priced to compete. A premium PlayStation Plus subscription will cost $120 per year, compared to $180 for the equivalent with Microsoft. Online gaming is seen as the future of the industry, as it doesn't require users to install games on a console or PC. Sony and Microsoft want to make sure they are major players in the new field. in case it ultimately spells the end for their expensive hardware.
And finally, Tesla has officially opened its first plant in Germany, marking the American automaker's inaugural European hub. We will allow Elon Musk, therefore, to dance us out of this bulletin. Thanks for joining us in Riga.
Elon Musk busted out his signature dance moves on Tuesday as Tesla officially opened its Gigafactory in Germany, the company's first manufacturing facility in Europe.
I'm incredibly excited to hand over the first production cars from our incredible team here at Giga Berlin Brandenburg. Tesla will make sure that this is a gemstone for the area, for Germany, for Europe, and for the world.
Musk toured the plant with Germany's chancellor, who hailed the Gigafactory as the future of the car industry.
This decision to build a car factory in this country was the right decision and a sign of progress and the future of the auto industry.
But not everyone thought it was the right decision. Environmental activists blocked the factory's entrance and displayed banners highlighting its high water use. Musk had hoped to open the factory 8 months ago, but licensing delays and local concerns around the plant's environmental impact held up the process. Tesla got the final go-ahead on March 4th, providing the factory met conditions ranging from its water use to air pollution controls. Tesla had been forced to fulfill European orders from Shanghai while it awaited the German license, adding to rising logistics spending at a time when it was struggling with industry-wide supply chain issues. On Tuesday, shares of Tesla were up roughly 3% in midday trading.
This is right, Arab.